I don't even know where to start from all of the things that have been said that are just wrong.
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John never wants to follow. Get ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
Well, against all odds, we've made it on the air this morning. What do you think about that, John?
I love the MEC drop first thing at the beginning of the week, Brad. You know what MEC stands for, right?
Missouri Electric Cooperative?
No. Monday Ear Candy. The dulcet tones of Mary Elizabeth Coleman kick us off, Brad.
That is John Combest, and we start a shortened week. Obviously, this is the 1st of July. Tomorrow's the 2nd. Wednesday's the 3rd. 4th is Thursday, and we won't be here, but we're still debating where we're going to be here. Are you available for the 5th if you want to do the 5th?
I'm here for you. I'd be happy to do the 5th.
Now, John, let's start off the show. I think I should just come clean. I had my family in over the weekend. We went away to our resort that I own and sat down with my family, and I said, I did some shows last week that weren't the best, and I'm 88 years old now. And my family said, Brad, give it up. Let John take over the radio stations. And I go, well, you know what that means? That means no more Westplex 107.1. It would be Egbert on 104.5, and it would be Combest on 107.1. I go, yeah. So be it. Just got to move on sometimes, I mean, it's to the point where the worst thing in life is to stay when you can't do it anymore. You know what I'm saying, John?
I know exactly what you mean. And first of all, it was one of the first big retreats ever held at Klondike Park.
How did you know we were at Klondike Park?
Well, we have a team on you. Thanks to this show, we learned about that flight tracker. Yeah. And we saw that you guys took the jet to Klondike Park. And you know what? I even heard that there's a special landing pad I heard in Washmo. I heard about that. The Hoffmans told me about that. But that's not where you were, though. You were at you guys were holed up at Klondike Park, and it was you quadrupled the annual attendance by your family coming.
No, the Hoffmans put in a new airport in Augusta. Even though it's not the kind of terrain you'd expect to build an airport in, they toiled for years and moved millions of cubic feet of dirt. And they now have a 10,000-foot runway out there in Augusta for all the corporate jets to land. Did you know about that?
I did. And unfortunately, the soil was radioactive, so they'll be cleaning it up for 300 years with taxpayer money, Brad.
John, don't say that, because it's not that far up 94 where the soil is still radioactive, but that's a whole other story. Well, that is John Combest, C-O-M-B-E-S-T. I spell that because you need the proper spelling when you go onto your keyboard and or on your phone and type in JOHNCOMBEST.com, which will take you to the John Combest site. It's a site similar to, back in the day, the old Drudge Report, but it's like Missouri, as the essentially the mystery guest who I talked to on the phone last week for almost 45 minutes, who is running for a state office, who I can't talk about the conversation because it was off the record. But as he said, it's like the Drudge Report, but for Missouri. You would consider that a compliment, wouldn't you?
Well, it's quite a compliment. Yeah, and beginning in 2001, I began in my frequently asked questions to describe the website that way, Brad. I'm glad the messaging caught on.
Yeah, well, it did. And John starts off the show. If you look at his website, you'll see sometimes dozens, sometimes 3 or 4 dozen worth of links that you can click on and find out all sorts of interesting things. But we start the show off by condensing that all down to what John thinks is the top 3, and who's to argue with John, because he's the guy who puts together. There's probably nobody that knows better than he. So we start off with this guy who comes into the studio, and believe it or not, he's still working for us.
Now on with the countdown.
And we start with,
in 3rd place.
We'll start with some good news, Brad, because as we progress, there's some stuff that gets a little heavy in story number 1. But let's start with number 3, a good story, a feel-good story. The Pride Parade over the weekend, Brad. And I don't know if you saw, but a heroic group called Queers for Palestine ended up demonstrating during the parade. Did you see any of this coverage, Brad?
Are you talking about they blocked the Pride Parade? Is that what you're talking about?
They did, yeah. So Fox 2 has a story up today. Did you happen to see any of the Post-Dispatch pictures?
Well, I saw the St. Louis Public Radio pictures, believe it or not.
I saw those too. Yeah, they didn't have many. They really only had a handful. And I scrolled down and I saw they assigned an intern to cover it, which shows you how important it is to St. Louis Public Radio. But then again, it was a Sunday, Brad, and nobody in their right mind does any work on a Sunday.
I was going to say it was a Sunday, John. That's why they assigned an intern. Come on, that's St. Louis Public Radio. Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 newsroom, right?
And Brad, can I after we do the headlines for today, St. Louis Public Radio is hiring, and I have a link up today from journalismjobs.com. Maybe we can touch on that when we're done. But let's start with the good news, though, Brad. Pride Parade, it's a feel-good event. The Post-Dispatch, if you read just one story about the Pride Parade, I would suggest people just go to the photo gallery from the Post-Dispatch today. It leads off with a woman who works for Boeing, who identifies as asexual, and she identifies her as a robot, Brad. And if you think I'm joking, I would suggest you take a look at the first picture in the photo gallery today. It says, "I identify as asexual, so I'm a robot today." And this is a woman who works as a software engineer at Boeing. Now, Boeing was the target, Brad, of the protesters because we need to divest from what's their catchphrase? I forgot what the catchphrase is, but WashU and other institutions need to divest from hate, I think is maybe that's what the catchphrase is. I'm not sure. But I have a lot of pictures up. The protesters did this gimmick, Brad, where they put their arms through these PVC pipes. So picture like a Chinese finger trap that, Brad, you might have purchased for the kids up at Magic Market at Bell Fountain and Trampy back in the day. But you jam your fingers in there and then you try to yank it and it doesn't come out. That's what they did with this PVC pipe. And then eventually firefighters and police officers had to come in and saw the PVC pipe to untangle the protesters. But it's a really feel-good piece. Miss Gay, or Mr., I'm not sure what it is, Gay Heartthrob 2024 pageant winner. That's Lady Elizabeth. She was there. Mayor Tashara Jones was there. Go ahead, Brad.
You did not mispronounce that name, correct? That's the way.
No, it's Eliza Bitch. Yeah, Miss, not to be confused with former valet in WWF, Miss Elizabeth with Randy Poffo.
Oh, God.
I also highlighted there's a very well-fed woman testing the strength of an inflatable. I'm not sure how the inflatable survived, but she was there. And then 3 officers were attempting to deadlift. I'm not sure if it's a man or a woman. It was an amorphous creature, a very, very heavy amorphous creature. And it looks like 3 police officers were indeed able to deadlift this creature off the streets. So anyway, if you're looking for a pick-me-up today, I would suggest, and as always, Brad, because it's from the Post-Dispatch, I linked to a paywall-free version if you're not inclined to give your cash to the Post-Dispatch.
Now, John, I've got some questions. When I first saw this protest, I thought to myself, isn't this like, the
Jews for Hitler? It would be like Jews for Hitler, maybe?
I don't quite understand. First off, I thought the Pride movement was untouchable. I didn't think anybody would essentially, let's be honest, F with that, so to speak. You know what I mean? Because
I get what, and nobody would disturb a feel-good event like the Pride Parade, right?
Right. You don't mess with that anymore. You just, okay, Pride Parade, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, now, but the people who were protesting were also part of the Pride movement, but they were anti-Israel, correct? Is that the way
I think it's fair to say. Now, St. Louis Public Radio, of course, titled their photo gallery, Pro-Palestinian. So not anti-Boeing and not anti-Israel, but pro-Palestinian. That's how, of course, like a St. Louis Public Radio is going to portray it.
I'm not the first guy to say this. I've heard this many times. But if you took the members of the people who were in the Gay Pride Parade and you dropped them into Palestine, chances are they wouldn't survive long, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think so. But you know what? I think their message, Brad, is that, first of all, don't trust a Zionist like Brad Hildebrand. And that's pretty much their message.
I'm not a Zionist.
I heard the rumor you're a Zionist. I have it on good authority you're a Zionist. But then again, Brad, you're 89. You probably don't even know what day it is.
No, I'm 88 still. I'm not 89 yet. See, what's crazy to me about this is that once again, I just don't understand the whole situation. I mean, you go back. All you have to do is, I'm the son of a World War II veteran, okay? My dad literally fought the Nazis. And the Nazis, I mean, literally, my dad fought the Nazis. And, I'm one generation away from Hitler, rounding up all these Jewish people, and not necessarily all Jewish people, predominantly Jewish people, but gypsies and other people I didn't like, and exterminating them. So how in the world, and you look at the history of Israel, they've always been attacked, they're constantly be attacked, by, like the Hamas with the rocket attacks, not so much anymore since they're in Palestine. Now the big worry is to the north with Hezbollah and Lebanon and things like that. And I'm going like, okay, I don't quite understand it. I know lots of Jewish people. They're not the kind that are out picking fights. They're not the kind that, hey, get off my lawn, buddy. They're not that kind of people. Most of them are hardworking, industrious, intelligent people who are, I'll say it, an asset to our society. I don't understand why there's so much hate for the Jewish people. I'll never understand it, John.
Well, I don't know. I think that the influence of Austrian painters, it's just pervasive, Brad. I think a lot of people have taken art history classes and they're just obsessed with Austrian painters. That's a popular now internet slang. If you don't want to say that somebody is a Nazi, you say they're a fan of an Austrian painter. That way you can get around the YouTube censors, Brad. But your point is well taken.
Move on to number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
This week in Missouri politics, Scott Fawn is doing something a little bit different with the show. Instead of having one main guest and then a panel, as we get close to the primaries, Scott Fawn is interviewing folks in their district, kind of doing a Zoom call, Skype call type thing, having conversations with them in their district. And I call it out, Brad, because first and foremost, one of them is in St. Charles County. One of the conversations he had on the most recent show is with Phil Cristofanelli. We'll get to that in one second. He also had an interview with Denny Hoskins running for Secretary of State. And Brad, I would call out for you. You may want to check out Denny Hoskins' comments about sports betting and about the Chiefs and Royals, because I think that they would pretty well track with where you are on those issues. I thought of you when I first heard the interview.
So is he saying
I would point folks to that interview, Brad.
Is he saying bring the Chiefs and the Royals here to St. Louis?
He is not saying bring them to St. Louis, but I would say he has a general – you guys share the same disposition about giving certain breaks to these teams, these players, and I feel like his opinion tracks with where you are on sports betting. But hey, Brad, I'm not in the business of advocating for one candidate or another. I would just suggest you take a look at it. Denny also talks about his endorsement from Missouri Right to Life. Now, what was really curious, Brad, and we know where you are on endorsements because you point out that you've never voted for a candidate based on any one group's endorsement.
Never.
Yeah. Now, what I think, and this story, by the way, pairs nicely with another link that I have up today. We'll include this in number 2. A gentleman named Garrett Bowles, who's down in Springfield, interviewed Missouri Right to Life PAC's Dave Clemens, and Dave was talking about their endorsement process. What's really interesting, Brad, is that Missouri Right to Life, so the venerated pro-life group in Missouri, gave one endorsement in the Secretary of State's race, and that's for Denny Hoskins. Now, what's unique about it, Brad, is that Missouri Right to Life made this endorsement on January 8th. That was before filing even opened. So before filing even opened, they said, Denny Hoskins is our guy. This is our sole endorsement for Secretary of State before filing even opened. And as you know, it became a free-for-all for Secretary of State. If I was interviewing Dave Clemens, I would say, what's the deal with endorsing candidates before filing even opens? You know what I mean? That seems kind of curious to me.
Well, also, wouldn't Mary Elizabeth Coleman be in that running for that endorsement as well, too?
You would think so. And now here's the thing. Who knows if Mary Elizabeth Coleman would have gotten the endorsement, or as Missouri Right to Life does in some races. For example, Brad, Missouri Right to Life has endorsed both Andrew Bailey and Will Scharf in the Republican primary. So who knows if Missouri Right to Life would have endorsed Mary Elizabeth Coleman or even other candidates. Shane Scholler, who's from Springfield, has a strong pro-life record. He's been a part of the conservative and pro-life movement for a long time. I just think it's interesting. Now, if you're Denny this is one of your flagship endorsements because Missouri Right to Life still carries a lot of weight, and you can say you have the sole endorsement. I just think I don't know. If I was running a group, I don't think I would give out endorsements before filing even open, much less before it closed. But
and
who knows?
the Secretary of State race is still, it's very much up in the air because there's 8 horses in that race, correct? I mean, is anybody?
You're exactly right. Yeah.
Has anybody come out, with a lead, or is it pretty much everybody's like in the pack still?
The only real metrics that we have now are fundraising, and Denny signaled on the call with Scott that he would likely be probably in, he believes, probably about second place. I think most folks accept that Dean Plocker comes in with a huge money advantage, and whether or not he maintains that, I think most folks expect him to maintain that. What I gotta say, based just on looking at Instagram and Twitter, and you know how I feel about efforting metrics. I can't stand the idea of measuring a campaign success by how many miles you put on a truck. But in terms of where you see folks, at parades, shaking hands with donors or shaking hands with voters at the door, we see Denny Hoskins out a lot, see Mary Elizabeth Coleman out a lot. I see posts from Shane Scholler. So these candidates are out there, man, and they're doing their thing.
Interesting. Okay. And last but not least,
The number one.
Brad, I don't know if this is the number one story over the weekend, but it was certainly one of the most interesting. Joe Holloman from the Post-Dispatch had a story up, and I had a link to it yesterday. The headline is, St. Louis County man charged in drug ring has personal campaign ties to state legislator. Now, Brad, there's a state Senate race going on in North St. Louis County, our old stomping grounds, our soil, where we were from, Brad, which is in North St. Louis County. So think of the Blackjack area, Florissant, Spanish Lake. That state Senate district, there's a woman named Angela Mosby, who's a Democrat, who represents that district. There's a state representative who was first elected in 2022 named Chantelle Nickson-Clark. And the controversy here is that there's a gentleman named Antonio Jones who's been charged with 6 felonies in connection to a drug ring. And this illegal activity apparently allegedly happened in 2021. Now, this gentleman is engaged to Representative Nickson-Clark, the woman running in that state Senate race. And in 2022, she began making payments to him from her campaign. So the first one was just listed as a payment it was labeled as campaign worker, gave him $250 and then started giving him more money. One of the checks from 2023 was labeled a $2,000 payment that was just labeled Juneteenth. And then in last September, she gave him $14,000 listed as campaign worker, another $500 at the end of the year. Anyway, this is all broken. The breakdown of this is all in the story that I linked to yesterday. But what's unique about this, Brad, I think, is that in my reading as a non-attorney, none of this violates anything with the Missouri Ethics Commission. So this does not appear to be anything that the Missouri Ethics Commission would frown upon or would fine Representative Nickson-Clark for. But it does look curious, and I'm not sure how much of a hit this will be in the district. I'm not sure how many voters actually read the Post-Dispatch or would care about something like this. But just reading the headline, it has that salacious, anytime you mention the word drug ring, people are going to click on the link. You know what I mean, Brad?
Yeah. I mean, because they're going to find out who they should go to, right? Hey, who's that guy?
Yeah, who's your connect in North County? You might want to go over to Kitty's Corner, see if the guy behind the bar can get you some ditch weed for a discounted price.
But you know what, John? I'm disappointed in you so far this morning. You know what you haven't
met?
Oh,
good. I like to hear it. Am I supposed to ask a follow-up question like, why are you disappointed?
Yeah, very good, John. Because
Brad, if you were any lamer, I'd have to call you Agnes. Go ahead.
Man, there's a battle going on here. Okay. You haven't mentioned red hot riplets yet so far this morning.
I have not yet, which you can get at Magic Market up there at Bell Fountain and Trampy, Brad.
And Ronnie's Barbershop used to have them as well, too. Okay.
I prefer to go to Cane's or Rich's Packaged Liquor up there.
Do you know
you
when
go wherever you want to go?
Do you know when we go into this stuff, it goes over like 99.9% of people's
That's okay, because
heads.
we have friends that are from Spanish Lake that listen to the show, and every
Right.
time I make a reference to Magic Market, they pop, Brad.
They'll go like, I know where that place was. Okay, we have to take a break.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?